Some cards are meta-defining, others unlock a whole new type of deck and archetype, and a few are about as good as Thor the Dark World. Pool 3, the largest of the card pools in Marvel Snap, containing over 75 cards that completely change the way you play the game. With the new token shop system allowing you to pick any card that you would like to unlock, knowing the best cards in Snap based on overall value is more important than ever. Well, call me crazy, but today I took on the stupid task of ranking every single card in Pool 3 from best to worst. Each and every card will get its own custom-made graphic telling you some, not all, of the best combos and locations and decks to use them in to get the best value, giving you a one-stop shop to help you decide which cards you'd like to unlock. Because this video is jam-packed full of information, let's go ahead and fire through the format of today's tier list, and then we'll jump right on in. Starting with the tier list is mainly based on overall value of the card. That means versatility mixed with how impactful they are in the game and how they work in some of the top in decks. I'll be ranking all of the cards on a scale from S tier all the way down to F tier. And for the most part, this is what the tiers correspond with. The F tier is mainly just complete garbage, right? Just played in very niche situations where other cards are going to do a lot better, and they definitely need some help overall. The C tier are cards that can work in niche decks or with the right combos, the deck type, or support around them to make them a little bit better. B tier is going to be reserved for the solid middle of the pack. You know, for the most part, they're good cards and they work pretty consistently. The A tier is going to be reserved for some of the best, most premier cards in the game, either archetype defining or incredibly powerful cards with just loads of versatility. And then finally, the S tier, the top of the class. This is reserved for the best of the best, the meta-defining top cards that you could play in Marvel Snap. All right. Let's go. We start out today's list with Adam Warlock, and sadly, he will be in the F tier. Now, currently, Adam is the only card with card draw in the game, which is obviously huge in card games. However, Adam just does not get played a ton. You can find some niche uses in control decks under maybe a storm shutdown location to continue to get that draw, or you can combo him with the Guardians of the Galaxy, as you know your opponent is going to be playing cards to stop your draw. Aero is going in the highest tier, the S tier. We're just going to cut right to the chase. Aero is my most used card in Marvel Snap. I put her into virtually any deck if I want to be super competitive, as she's got versatility, high cube, late round impact. She's just the complete package. She can ruin combos. She can move cards to locations that your opponent is already winning and they don't want to play any more cards there. She can move cards to undesirable locations to get that advantage. Aero just truly does it all and is why she's ranked so high. We don't have a lot of S tier cards, but Aero belongs at the top. Oh, Agatha. So many people love her, but I've got to place her in the C tier. I mean, when it comes to multitasking, she's the S tier, right? I mean, she plays your cards for you, but her AI is just not that intelligent, right? It's not going to win any Scholar Awards anytime soon. But she can definitely have some decks built around her. You can have ways to discard her early. You can use other cards to play her before that she's going to play herself on turn 6. But if we're being honest, guys, she's not super competitive. I know there's some big Agatha lovers out there, but she's got to be placed in the C tier, as I feel like that defines really what she does. Arnim Zola is going in the A tier. Now, Arnim Zola is a plug-and-play master. He's truly super versatile, and he definitely fits the definition of what A tier stands for. People are never going to expect the cheeky Arnim Zola play to completely switch the power with one huge standalone card to another location, like Devil Dinosaur. A staple in the top tier on revealed decks, and a card that can work in multiple decks across the board. Arnim is truly a great card to unlock early, and one that I would target in the token shop if you enjoy his style of play. Because time and time again, I will always say, guys, playing the opponent's mind is half the battle, and Arnim does that pretty well. We've got Baron going to the F tier. Now, look, we all have good days, and then we all have days where we're in Pool 3 and we draw this guy, one of the worst cards in the game overall. Essentially, he's just a more expensive Yondu. He's not going to be a card that you're going to be putting in much of your decks. He can disrupt the opponent from time to time, but again, he's not just one of the weakest cards in Pool 3, but in Marvel Snap. Next is Beast, and he is going in the B tier. Now, Beast is a little bit tricky to place. I think he's got great value in bounce decks, and he can be really versatile depending on the situation, as he can also fit into discard decks and a few other ones that can give some value to your cheap on-reveal cards. He's going to be lacking in comparison to some of the other cards that we mentioned today, but out of Pool 2, he could be an excellent pull, but as far as the overall definition of his ranking, he fits in the lower end of the B tier. Black Bolt is going in the F tier, sadly. I think so many characters have gotten justice to what they are in the MCU or Marvel universe, but sadly, Black Bolt here, man, this guy needs a small buff. He's not as bad as everybody says. I think he's towards the higher end of the F tier, if that helps, but he doesn't really belong anywhere. Discarding your opponent's lowest card oftentimes just doesn't do a lot at a turn 5 value there, and he needs help. But I did make a graphic on him, and these are the cards or locations that you could use him with. Now, I swear, this whole tier list doesn't even have that many F-tier cards. We're just getting a lot out of the way now. We've got Black Cat. Again, more towards the top end of F-tier, if you will. Black Cat is a pretty niche card that can work well with some archetypes and decks. Strong Guy's going to love her. Hela, you can use her with Ghost Rider and Morbius. They all have got some solid synergy there. But if I'm being honest, there's just plenty of discard options, right? And in the discard decks in general, she's just not picked in comparison to those other cards, which is why she is located in the F tier. Now, we've got a card that I personally like a lot and had a hard time judging if it should be in the A or B tier. We have Black Widow. And the reason why she's just a great card overall is she's 2 cost, and she is just a card that can fit into virtually any deck, right? She is fantastic with disruption, and she can pack a punch played with the right combo or on the right location. She can completely throw your opponents off entirely. Now we've got Brood going in the B tier. Brood is a staple in the decks that he does fit in. However, there's not a ton of them at the moment. I like Brood a lot. I think in Patriot decks, Sarah Miracle, and soon to be with the Silver Surfer, all these are going to keep this card pretty viable. His best value, in my opinion, however, comes with locations. Locations like Mojo World, the Raft, obviously, and Gamma Lab all need cards very quickly. Or even locations like TVA, just some quick power out there. But overall, I think he might rise in Pool 3 tier list down the line. Talk about a card that would have an A+ ranking if we had an A+ category. We've got Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel truly works in any deck. Legit. Throw her in the deck, and she's going to get the job that she was designed to do done. She's going to work best in control decks, and she can come in clutch late game and make sure decisions feel a lot less stressful, as she's going to fly to the location that needs the extra power in order to win the game. And she's the definition of the A tier, right? She can fit into so many decks. She's versatile. Love her to death. If I'm being honest, I don't even use her enough, but she can fit into so many different styles of play. Now we've got Cerebro, who I'm going to place in the top of the B tier. Now, it does create its own type of deck, so it could belong in the A tier, but Cerebro is going to be a very unique card. Now, at first, to the deceiving eye or casual players, Cerebro seems all but worthless. You can run him in a 2-power deck or a 3-power deck to get the most out of this card and create sole purpose reasons to run him. Now, I think down the line, Cerebro's only going to get better. There's some cards coming out that can help it a lot. However, the only problem that I have with it is there are so many locations that completely screw the deck up in its entirety, right? If your power level dips or rises in any capacity, you can kiss your chances winning goodbye. Now we've got Colleen Wing. She's going to be in the top end of the B tier single-handedly. If you have a discard deck that you're wanting to play, she instantly gives it a lot more value. Colleen is fantastic. She gives you a reliable option to discard Swarm from your hand. At the same time, she has a 2-cost, 4-power value in the process, which is fantastic. In the token shop, if you see her and you enjoy discard play and you've got some other cards to make it work, I definitely recommend purchasing her. I think she's going to be well worth it. And is definitely one of the most used cards in my discard decks altogether. All right, we're not done with the F tier, guys. We've got Crossbones. At best, he's a 4/8 that you could play on a winning location. At worst, he's a much worse Jessica Jones. I mean, Crossbones just is a weird card. I don't think he really belongs in a ton of decks. If you pull him early in Pool 3, then, sure, you can use him. You can put him in control decks, maybe some movement decks. But outside that, I would avoid him. He's in the F tier. Damn, I swear, guys. I swear they're not all there. But I guess just like the early letters happen to be the worst cards, which I didn't realize. But Crystal. We have a continue here, folks, for one of the worst cards in all of Marvel Snap. And if there was something below the F tier, I would put this bad boy in there just by these demon eyes. Love you, Dan Hip, but this one scares the life out of me. Crystal just doesn't have any value. If this is in the middle location, she shuffles your hand, and yes, you can make that work with maybe a Mr. Negative deck into some of these future cards coming out, but at the time being, Crystal needs a lot of help and is definitely one of the worst cards in all of the game. We move on to Dagger going in this C tier. We've got a big brain card here, and that fits perfectly with the move deck types because you need to be thinking a lot when you play this deck, and Dagger fits the role. Dagger can take move decks to a bit of the next level in Pool 3. You can try to combo her in packages that force the opponent to play more cards at a single location. You can put her with Doc Ock or someone like Lizard. Move decks have brighter days ahead, and I think Dagger is going to as well. Now, this might be my first reach, but we have Daredevil, and I'm going to be honest, guys. I know that maybe top end of A tier might be where he belongs, but I think he belongs in S tier. I think this guy is one of the best cards in Marvel Snap because, first of all, he has 2/2 value. He could have 2/0 value and still does his job so well. And that job is letting you see exactly what the opponent is going to do on turn 5. And that just can't be stressed enough how powerful that is on the second to last turn in Marvel Snap. Now, I'm an absolute sucker for control decks. Professor X is my most split card, but he instantly gives value to your Pool 1 and Pool 2 cards. Professor X, obviously, Gamora, we've got Hobgoblin plays. He just skyrockets the value there. You can just always benefit from Daredevil being in your deck, and he's located in legit some of the best decks in all of the game. Next, we've got Deadpool in the B tier, and the best way to describe Deadpool is he's fun. Now, Deadpool can sometimes get some crazy freaking power out on the board, and the value is just absolutely insane. You do have to commit a lot to make him work, and he can be a staple in destroy decks, given the overall resources that you have to commit to destroy him and keep on making the power better or use other cards to go ahead and make him stronger. He's going to go in the B tier, but I do think he's got brighter days ahead with more cards coming into the game. Now, this next one is tough. We have Death. Destroy decks are at the top of the meta, which means Death is going to be located there as well. Death is insane. She's just such a great card. And again, any card in the game that you can reduce the cost of is going to be a high-ranked card. Death belongs in the S tier. If Toxicity is your middle name, then you are going to absolutely love her. I'm actually going to give her the benefit of the doubt and place her in the A tier. Low A tier, but I think that she can fit across so many different decks and create such chaos that you can prepare for, but your opponent cannot. She fits in Sarah decks, Destroy decks, Patriot decks, Control decks. She works across the board, and because of that disruption versatility, she belongs in the A tier. Now, yes, Destroyer did get nerfed a little bit. However, he's still very impactful. I think ongoing decks are going to struggle a bit more down the line. Early Pool 3, have fun. You're going to dominate, but the Destroyer definitely gets the job done. He could be maybe towards the top of A tier, but I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and place this high power card in the S tier. Let's move on to Doc Ock, and I'm going to place him in the lower B tier. I think Doc Ock has brighter days ahead. He's a tech card that not a lot of people utilize. Now, he's a 5-cost, 10 power card, and he can definitely help you win some cheeky locations like Bar with No Name, and you can definitely mess up what the opponent is trying to do with their combos. I like him a lot. I feel like he might need some slight tweaking, but he's a great middle of the pack card. Now we've got a powerful card in Dr. Doom. I'm going to place him in the near bottom of the S tier, and that is because he's a standalone, fantastic card. He can fit into so many different decks. Really doesn't matter what kind of type of deck you're running. He's going to give instant value. Now, technically, he's a 615 value that spreads himself wide, covering hard-to-reach locations, covering things that your opponent's just not expecting. And that's why I put him up here. I think he can win you a lot of cubes because even at top in play, it's hard to calculate if your opponent is going to play Dr. Doom. He's just a freaking stud that fits into mostly any deck in Marvel Snap. Next is Dracula in the A tier. One of the most unique cards in the game that cannot be countered pretty much by any tech card out there. I've got full discard deck guides out there for you guys to see the max potential of this card, but he's also definitely a great card to unlock in the token shop. I think he's going to be worth those tokens as he can fit into decks right out of pool 2 to instantly give you a large boost. He's a big win condition. America Chavez. We've got obviously Apocalypse that are going to work perfectly with this card. He can also work outside of discard decks as well, which is why I'm going to put him in the A tier. Also, just look how badass this variant is. All right, let's keep this one quick. We've got Drax is going in the F tier. He has truly mastered the art of standing perfectly still because he's horrible. He's just not a good card, guys. Jessica Jones does exactly what he does without trying to guess where the opponent is going to play. He's the weakest of the Guardians of the Galaxy crew, in my opinion, and belongs at the bottom of this list. Now we've got Electro, which you guys know I am high on. We have him in the A tier. Now, I think he's an absolute incredible card that people are going to continue to use in Marvel Snap because people do not realize the pros and cons when it comes to this card. Guys, if you really want to know just how important and powerful he is, you can check up the ramp deck guide up above. That's the deck I use to climb to Infinite with. I think it's a ton of fun with some high power potential. Now, I do think there is a better ramp card out there we'll talk about here pretty soon. But when it comes to the deck's purpose of ramping, I love what Electro does altogether. Now, essentially, he's a portable superflow, and there's so many different meta cards at a 5-cost option, which you can play multiple of starting from turn 4 or even earlier if you have the method to do so. Next, we've got Falcon. I'm going to put him in the C tier. Now, he's very low in the C tier, if I'm being honest, but he does have some fun uses to him. Falcon is going to go ahead and work in some bounce decks, and he can definitely, somewhat work in lower-ranked matches in Pool 3. He's best paired, obviously, with 1-cost cards, Yondu, Iceman, and has some synergy with the Collector. Another tough card to place, we've got Gambit. Now, I'm going to put him at the very top of the B tier category, as I do think he has plenty of plug-and-play potential. He's right on the cusp there. Gambit can be plugged again into so many decks. He's got great value at stake as he's going to discard one of your cards and destroy a random card on the battlefield. When you utilize this guy with some combos out there like Wong, or you can hide him and put him on Kamar Taj or Odin him even, getting rid of 2 plays on the enemy side is fantastic. And if they have a deck that's very heavy weighted for big power cards like Black Panther, Sunspot, Infinite, destroying that card, man, for 3-cost value, sign me up. Next, we have a card that can pull cards back from hell. We have Ghost Rider that I'm going to place at the very, very top of the C tier. Now, the reasoning with Ghost Rider, he's a good card, but the problem with him is the way you need to enable his great value. You need discard options, and sadly, they're not really ran in other decks outside of the one we just talked about. Sure, you can do, Gambit and then use that discarded option and play Ghost Rider the next turn, but you have to depend on that kind of niche hand-pulling, card-pulling situation. Earlier, discard decks are just highly competitive with which cards you want to include, so Ghost Rider is going to go at the top of the C tier. We've got Marvel's Godzilla. Giganto is going at the top of the B tier. Giganto equals power. Now, I think he works in plenty of decks. You can run him in Jubilee, Hela. There's a tons of options because obviously the 14 power is never a bad thing to have. What I like to do, and where I played him the most in plenty of seasons where I climbed ranks pretty easily, is control decks. I actually like playing for the right or middle lane, and then you play Giganto on the left lane to end turn 6. It definitely throws people off if you're able to lock down one early. Think of him as a destroyer without all of the cons, but you have to obviously play him on the left location. Next, we've got Goose, who I think is a card that we're still seeing very early be developed into the meta game. Goose is a 2/2 card that can definitely slot into so many different decks, and it's got one of the coolest animations in the game. He's pretty much a pocket-sized big house location, and he can really frustrate your opponents that have higher, greedier cost decks that you can build around and prep for. We've got a lot of high power, high cost decks, but there's plenty of room for tons of low power, high value decks like Sarah Miracle. Goose is great for control. If you pull him, you can definitely make it work. If you like Hobgoblin, you'll love the Green Goblin, who will be a A-tier card, no question. Truly, he's the plug-and-play master. He can do so much. He ruins absolute games by playing him on Superflow. You can play him on Space Throne and just pretty much Professor X that location, like just ruin their day. And oftentimes you're going to get that retreat right off the bat. I love Green Goblin. I think he's fantastic to put into so many different decks and definitely is deserving of an A tier spot. Moving on to Hazmat. She's going to be in the C tier, but I think the days are going to be better moving forward. Obviously, Luke Cage is going to give instant, huge value and a giant combo that you can make with Wong and her. Right now, she kind of fits into toxicity decks, like the Pure Evil deck guide that I've put out there. Hazmat is a decent card. You can make her work, and she will shoot up in value here eventually. Now let's move on to Hela, a great card that we're going to put at the low end of the A tier. Hela makes her own types of decks that truly, literally ruled the beta for absolute months. She's one of the most pool 3 demanding cards in the game. You need a lot of pool 3 cards to make her work. And it's fairly obvious what you're trying to do with her. If you lay down Invisible Woman, they're most of the time going to expect a Hela deck. And they're going to retreat before you get the high cube cost, which is why I personally don't love the deck myself. Moving to Hellcow, somehow this card was 2 cost in the beta. I mean, it was easily one of the best cards in the game back when I was playing that. But I've got to say, Hellcow is a good card. Not a fantastic card outside of discard options. And even there, you can make other things work. I like Hellcow, but C tier because of the same argument sakes that we had with Ghost Rider. Flame on! Human Torch, let's put in the B tier. Look, if move decks are your jam, then you'll love Human Torch. He's actually quite fun and fun to play as well. I think he ramps a bit better than some of the other cards we've talked about, like Deadpool. And again, movement cards, the best days are ahead. So I think he'll get only better. The only problem with Human Torch, it's a big one, is that he is 1 cost. I almost wish he wasn't because you put in so much effort to make him strong, and then Killmonger just does a nice slit across the neck and ends his life. Invisible Woman, we're going to put her in the B tier. She's got plenty of utility even outside of the obvious Hela decks. I think she's a cheeky way to play combos that you don't want your enemies to know about, right? Like Wong combos and Kingpin or other more secret setups that you're trying to hide. In addition, she's also a cheap alternative as an ongoing card for Spectrum. And just like I've said with other cards, she's a portable Dark Dimension. And that can't be overlooked. There are ways to mess her up, but she is pretty solid. Jane Foster, the Mighty Thor, is not so mighty. She's going to go in the C tier mainly because of the niche uses that she has. Now, Jane is interesting. She's a good card. 5, 8 values, not bad. Problem that I have with Jane is the decks that she works in and the ways that you need to use her and the card pulls that you have to make it worth it. Mr. Negative and Thor obviously get the most value out of Jane, and she can pack a punch without question when it comes to a Mr. Negative deck. Actually, that deck is completely filthy. But outside of that one niche use, I'm going to put her in the C tier for that exact reason. I'm the Juggernaut. Juggernaut is going in the B tier. He's a perfect complement that feels just at the right cost to play him. Now, I think his location utility is why I like him so much. To push cards to Superflow, to mess up combos, to push cards out of Space Throne that they wanted to play. And then obviously he has some good synergy with cards as well. You can play him with Kingpin for some great synergy. You can put him with cards like Storm that can mess up when enemies are going to try to capitalize on the flooded location. I have him more towards the top of B tier. I think he's pretty solid. And look at this Oscar Mayer Wiener baby variant. Let's move on to Kingpin, who I've got towards the bottom of the C tier. Kingpin is a great combo card that, again, is that portable Fisk Tower. Now, he's a little obvious of what you're doing, so your opponent's going to clearly try to play the cards there before turn 6. But there are some combos that can make him work very well. I do wish that maybe he cost like 1 more and had a bit more power to make him overall a bit more viable. But he's strong. I like him. I like to mess around and have some fun with him every now and then. He works with great combos rather than deck types. So like, Magneto, Aero, and Juggernaut all work great. And then like New York as a location, he can completely shut that down. So he's a fun card. Leader, and that's going to be an S tier card, ladies and gentlemen. Call me crazy, but I think he's one of the best cards in Snap. And I'll tell you why. He's just going to flat out counter pretty much everything that your opponent is trying to do on the last turn, especially if you've got the winning advantage. He fits into any meta deck, and at pool 2, pulling him early, he's going to be a great card to slot into whatever you want to play. You have crazy potential to win high cubes, and he's just incredible all around the board. He feels like Aero in the sense that every deck can get pretty strong with a leader in it. He might be towards the bottom of S tier, but I do think he belongs here. He's definitely a top 10 contender of what I would lock with collector tokens. Freeze them, unlock them, and plug them in. Now, another borderline S tier card that we're going to put near the top of A, we have Lockjaw. Now, one of the best cards, again, outside of Pool 2, another contender I would unlock early. Lockjaw just unlocks the potential of on-reveal decks by just really upping the game to what they do. Now, Lockjaw, as you know, will go ahead and swap a card that you have played. And so playing White Tiger or Jubilee, you get insane value out of playing the slot machines here, and you can often build decks to complement it in your favor. I think because of having only 3 costs to play them and the ability to work with discard decks and a multitude of other top-in meta plays that you can do, I think he's going to stick around for a while in the meta. Do you believe in Magik? We've got Magik landing in the A tier simply because you are changing the rules in Marvel Snap and you are prepared for it and your opponent is not. Talk about a great control card, but also a plug-and-play card that will give you the advantage of really just winning across the board. You can pair her up with like Rescue. You can pair her up with Shang-Chi. I've got a deck called After Credits that I just freaking love, and I'll release here pretty soon. Overall, Magik is solid. You can put her in the A tier, no question, and plug her into so many different decks. Next in the A tier, we have Magneto at 612 value. Yeah, I like this card a lot, guys. Magneto is fantastic. The con that he has of moving cards is just a pro. There's really no con to it. Unless you play him wrong, and that's more on you than him as a card. Magneto just works excellent to get rid of those Wong combos. He can move Lockjaw and some of the more top-in cards that you're going to see at the top of play. I truly love this card. I think he fits and works with plenty of the decks in Marvel Snap and has top-tier value by himself. We've got a big boy coming through, Mojo, with big power potential. Now, I think Mojo is one of the best, if not the best, 2-cost card behind, Angela and a couple of the other obvious favorites. Mojo's great. You can play him against, Kazoo decks. You can play him against combos like Wong that they're trying to fill out that one location. Lockjaw decks as well. And Mojo's going to go ahead and be best played towards the end of your matches and not really at his second turn value that you might think you want out of him. Because you can go ahead and play him once you've seen what your opponent is trying to set up, rather than just throwing him out on the board. But control decks, Sarah Miracle, all work wonderfully with him. Listen, I love discard. I know we've put a lot of the options in the C tier, but Moon Knight is definitely towards the near bottom of the C tier, and that is because there's other options out there, right? Moon Knight is a badass character, but he's not exactly a badass card. Moon Knight is going to go ahead and get rid of 1 card on your side by discarding it and 1 card on the opponent's side. And it's a decent, somewhat early counter to Devil Dinosaur, but he's niche and he does deserve to be near the bottom of the list. Now, hands down a card you're going to fall in love with. Mr. Negative is near the top of the A tier. This card is simply both fun and powerful. Like, I can't wait for you guys to get your hands on Mr. Negative if you have not had the opportunity or the joy to play him yet. Definitely an early contender for the token shop. Mr. Negative is going to swap the cost and power, and while that doesn't work for all the cards in the game, cards like Taskmaster, Arnim, Zola, and Iron Man, the sheer value that you get out of those cards is impeccable. They've had to nerf him a lot to try to make him work. He makes his own archetype in Marvel Snap. Love him. Can't wait to see more cards come to the game to add to the overall synergy. And again, variant flex. Now, Mysterio was also another candidate that got hit with the nerf cannon, but it wasn't a big one. Yes, losing 1 power on a 5 total power card will affect his viability a little bit, but he still has that element of surprise. I'm going to keep him in the A tier. I thought about maybe dropping him into the B tier, but he's still very consistent for a 2-cost card. It's just fun. He's just fun to play. Maximus, we're going to put in the B tier. I'll be brief, but I'm a bit higher up on him than most. Love the power that he has, and playing him on the last turn or in Sarah Miracle just feels absolutely perfect. Maximus is going to end in the B tier, and he does have decent synergy with a few cards. Oh, Mystique. We've got ourselves another S tier card that we'll be putting towards the lower part of the S tier. The one that got away. Mystique was the last card that I unlocked in Marvel Snap, and damn it, I'm still pissed about it. Mystique is just incredible, right? She copies an ongoing ability, and with the sheer amount of ridiculously strong ongoing abilities, She is a powerful card to make the most broken, busted combos across Marvel Snap. She's going to be instant value if you get her out of Pool 2 to fit into so many different decks. Even copying something as simple as Iron Man or, Devil Dinosaur, she's going to find immense value. Love Mystique, continue to use her to this day, and plenty of people would put this as one of their favorite cards in Marvel Snap. And a card single-handedly changes other decks and instantly improves them, like, the Patriot deck. You've got a good one in the top of the class on your hands. Samuel Jackson. Nick Fury, guys. Sadly, he's not exactly going to be top tier, but I think Nick Fury is better than most think he is, especially in Devil, Dinosaur, or Ramp deck. Having the ability to give you 6 cost cards, 3 of them, in fact, is pretty cool for options. The only unfortunate part is if you get, like, Hela, if you get Destroyer, and then Ultron, like, sometimes there's, like, no value. But Nick Fury, he's fun. I think he could get a bit better with his overall buff to the card, but 5/7, I'll take it. Next, we have Omega Red, who could be in the C or B tier. I'm going to lean on the B tier, as I think that he's just not played enough. He's a pretty elite ongoing card that if you build the right deck around him, he can combine a bunch of abilities from other cards like Mr. Fantastic and get the job done. Now, 5 power is nothing great, but you can definitely make him work in some top-end decks, and as long as you work hard enough on one location, you've got like a little small nexus on your hands. Next, we've got Patriot. And look, I'm a New England Patriots fan, so I'll try not to be biased. He's one of the harder ones to place, guys. If I'm being honest, I had a tough time where to put him. But because of his own value that he brings to the Patriot deck, and because of how strong that deck is by itself, I'm going to be putting Patriot in the A tier. Because he gives newfound access to plenty of cards and, again, is involved in such a strong deck, I'm truly curious if they are going to release any other cards with no abilities. But if and when they do, I'm going to look forward to it because I love playing this deck. And he's very easy to play. He's a top-end deck that's simple to run. Now we move on to Polaris, and she's going in the B tier. She's actually pretty strong. I mean, her con is that she, moves a 1 or 2 cost card over. This can work in your advantage a ton in control decks and Space Throne and some of those other locations. She's solid and a plug-and-play card for most decks. She can move Nova out of the way for those people that are trying to destroy Nova. She can move Armor and a couple of those other important niche 1 and 2 cost cards, like Invisible Woman, for a great example. We've got Polaris in the B tier. All right, fellas, let's move on to Psylocke. Now, I'm going to put her in the C tier, but the top of C tier that could arguably be in the B tier as well. While I believe that Wave and Electro are definitely better ramp cards than Psylocke, Psylocke does her own thing by giving you an imperative play to get some quick 4-cost cards out there like Wong or Mr. Negative to get some extreme value out of those cards. And like, guys, if I'm being honest, like I've got most of her variants. I love her to death. I think she's a strong card that I personally like to use a lot, but she's got to be in the top end of C. Just look at this card. Doesn't it scream power? Quake is going to be going in the F tier. Just incredibly situational. She can be like annoying with hot and featured locations, but that's about it. I'm not a fan. I think she might get slightly better if they do decide to buff her or if an unreleased card comes out. But Quake is very niche and is, without question, more towards the bottom 10 of the game. Next is Quinjet in the C tier. Now, Quinjet is a good card for early Pool 3 players. You can make the Jet work in some of your Devil Dinosaur collector decks. Quinjet will fit in some of the decks later into Pool 3 and is a cheap ongoing card for Spectrum. But opposed to someone like Invisible Woman, it doesn't work in multiple decks, and that's the main problem. For a 1-cost card that you can put with Nick Fury, White Queen, it could do okay. Red Skull, let's put him in the B tier. Now look, 15 power is 15 power. Now the ability of him might scare you, and some people love Red Skull. Heck, let's show this variant. But Red Skull is going to be a card that you've got to work around with some other cards, like Venom, Zero, Sandman, Control Decks, Enchantress. These are all going to have great synergy with Red Skull. If you do play him late, he can be good for a power swing. Space Throne, he's like the king of. But the problem is he's giving up so much power. If they've got 4 cards on that side, that's 8 extra power, making him simply like a 5/7. Now we move on to Rescue at the top of Class A tier, guys. Again, definition of top of class. The golden standard for a 4-cost card is Rescue. Rescue here, which this variant just absolutely love. It's a solid card to follow up on with so many different cards on turn 5. Love to play Rescue with Captain Marvel, Magik, Iron Man, Ironheart, White Tiger. All these cards work well with Rescue because you get +5 power when you play a card the next turn. And usually by this point, people are not playing Guardians of the Galaxy or anything that might bite you with Rescue on the board. A solid card, definitely A tier worthy. Rock Slide will be in the F tier, guys. He's pretty much Korg on steroids. The only problem is he costs 3 more energy, and he just does not do what he needs to do by the time you play him. The Rock Slide is going to go ahead and give 2 rock cards over to your opponent, but by this time, they're not often going to pull this, and it really just does not impact the game. The big guy's going in the F tier. Next up is Rogue, and she will be in the high B tier. Now, one of my favorite tech cards in the game, but often people choose to play Enchantress over Rogue because of the power that you get with Enchantress. But there's no better dopamine rush than when you steal a Devil Dinosaur or an Iron Man with your Rogue card. Overall, I like her a lot. I think she's solid. If she was a 3-2, she'd probably be too good, if that makes sense. So I think she could arguably be in the A tier, but high B tier feels good to me. Ronan the Accuser is a C tier card, guys. Legit the direct counter to Devil Dinosaur. Ronan's fun. He just doesn't have a lot that goes his way, and a card that you can't control necessarily. Yes, you have Maximus and some cards that you can synergize with Ronan, but you might as well do that with Devil Dinosaur either way. You know, maybe he moves up. There is some ways to make him work, but for now, he's a C tier card. Oh, Sarah. Now, we used to have Sarah at a S+ category, but after the nerf, she's still going to be in the S tier. Now, she's not quite as, I don't know, reliable with the 1 power decrease. She oftentimes was one of the higher power cards in a Sarah Miracle deck, but what makes her great is her ability. So she's going to stay in the S tier. She's pretty consistent across the board. Definitely still worthy of an unlock. Everybody's friendly neighborhood Spider-Man is going in the B tier, guys. I wish you could be a little higher. Maybe he could, but he's incredibly fun. I wish Spider-Man was a bit better than he is, but the way he works feels so great to what the character is. Essentially, playing Spider-Man on turn 5 is just incredibly impactful to shut down the opponent trying to finish off a strong combo or just close down a lane in its entirety. You can also shut down some locations early, like the Vault or Miniaturized Lab, again, would be a good one to shut down. Spider-Man, he's simply fun. A great control card through and through. We move on to Taskmaster in the A tier. Now, use more near the end of your Pool 3 collection. I love Taskmaster. Taskmaster copies the last card that was played, so he's great with cards like Venom and Black Panther. Solid across the board and has plenty of plug-and-play potential. And he's one of the few counters to Leader, as Leader's just going to copy Taskmaster, and that's going to copy their last card they played. So that's a solid option if you just hate losing to Leader. Now we've got a 1-cost card that might be the highest 1-cost that we've easily ranked. We've got ourselves the Hood going near the top of the A tier. Now, honestly, you can call me crazy, but the Hood is a fantastic card that works across all of the decks in Marvel Snap, especially the Disruption decks and the Destroy decks that you can utilize. Pair him up with things like Viper to get even more value. Really just one of the best 1-cost cards in the game. You play him out there, you get the Demon for a 1/6 value. I mean, hanging on to the Demon till the end of the game completely takes the opponent by surprise. Mjolnir to me! Thor is going in the B tier. Now, there's a period of time where I did nothing but run one of my favorite Avengers in all of my decks. Thor is an incredible scaling card that you can utilize across the board. I still think we haven't quite cracked the code on his top potential, and there is some risk with playing him to get the Mighty Hammer, but putting him with a Lockjaw deck or Jane Foster or comboing with some locations that have multiple on-reveal effects can be fantastic. If you pull him early, you can also plug him with someone like Moon Girl to just get a ridiculous supercharged Thor. All right, so we have Typhoid Mary. Now, Typhoid Mary's tough. A bit of me wants to put her in the C tier. I'm going to put her in the top of the F tier. I think the thing about Typhoid is the con of giving all of your other cards -1 power is absolutely brutal. Luke Cage, however, is going to single-handedly make her a much more valuable card because he's going to make your cards not be able to have their power reduced. Typhoid Mary does work in some combos. You can 0 Enchantress or Venom her to get the maximum value. there are no strings on me. We're going to be placing Ultron in the B tier. Just such a perfect card to the lore that is Ultron. Great card. 6/8 is not a bad cost to power value. And the fact that he can fill every location with drones is fantastic. This does kind of pigeonhole him into not using him in every deck, right? He's not going to be used across the board. But the decks that do utilize him at the top potential, like Patriot deck or even Khazar, are great, guys. These drones can seriously get scaled up to a ridiculous value if you have Mystique and you play the order right. That's mainly why Ultron is going to be in the top of the B tier. If you have him in a perfected Patriot deck, then easily an A tier card. Love me some Ultron. Now we move on to a fun Destroy card in Venom. I'm going to be putting him in the B tier as he is one of the few Destroy cards in all of Marvel Snap. Venom comes with some heat as he's one of the best cards for locations like Nexus, Shuri's Lab, or even Bar Sinister is another great example. And eat the monsters in Monster Island for some better value. You can also go really risky and play Guardians of the Galaxy, like play a lot of those different cards to get big power, then eat them, and then Arnim Zola him for just the game-winning decision. But the only thing about him is, now that Black Panther is out, it feels like that's a much more consistent Arnim Zola play. Let's move to the SMG Machine Gun Viper, going in the C tier, guys. Rocks, the hood, whatever it might be, throw your crap at the enemy. Viper's a very interesting card to really take advantage of everything that she does. I like her in those toxic decks, but she's kind of niche, right? So that's why she's going to go in the C tier. However, she can single-handedly just like ruin what the opponent's trying to accomplish. I hope to see her in more decks. Now, one of the few zero-cost cards in the game, we have Wasp. While she isn't elite, she isn't terrible. She works as some nice combos with Lockjaw. You can make her work in a couple of decks to get some value. Hell, she's a free play if you have her in your hand, but there's often better cards you want to put in your deck. We only have got a few cards left, and Wave is in the S tier, top of class, guys. Wave is a ramp card that just makes so many decks possible and belongs in the top decks in all of Marvel Snap. Essentially making big power plays early on turn 4, but also playing her on turn 5 is absolutely ridiculous to force your opponent to only play one card. Guys, if you got Wave early in Pool 3, congratulations. Definitely use your tokens to unlock her at the time of this video. Solid all around the board. Top of the class, S tier. Now we've got Wong. Wong's interesting. He's definitely towards the top of this list. I think some people struggle. Should he be in the top of A? Some people who hate him just claim that he's easy to counter. And yes, Enchantress is out there and a couple other counters. But in all reality, Wong is still a very strong card. I'll be placing Wong towards the end of the S tier, but still definitely elite. Don't let others get you down. He is a strong card out the gate and only gets better as you progress through Pool 3. And then it sucks. We had these two back-to-back great cards, and now we've got this guy, Yellow Jacket. Not a great card. In fact, one of the worst cards in the game. Outside of like destroyed decks, he just does not do enough. Yellow Jacket, F tier. And then for our last card, holy crap, we got here, we have Zero. And Zero is going to be a 1/3 card, one of the few 1-cost 3-power cards. He's got a whole deck made after him that can zero out Typhoid Mary, Red Skull Destroyer. Some people, the ones that like Zero, love him. I don't use him all of the time, but I do recognize he's a solid card. I'm going to put him in the B tier. I think that's where he kind of belongs. You could argue maybe the A tier because he makes his own deck type. But him and Cerebro feel like they belong in the same tier together. Zero will be our last card, and that means, ladies and gentlemen, we're done. And there you have it. After almost 100 total hours of putting this thing together, we've got every single card in Pool 3 ranked in Marvel Snap. Here is a view of the complete tier list with icons and rankings that you guys can feel free to go ahead and screenshot, or you can find the complete graphic in my Discord. I want to thank you guys so much for sticking by today's video. If you guys want more Marvel Snap content, feel free to subscribe as, again, over 80% of you guys have not yet subscribed to the channel. And I get it. Again, I get it. You know, you don't always want to click the red button, but you can unsubscribe at any time, and it helps me a lot as a creator grow and get more videos out there. And again, as always, until the next one, happy snapping.